Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're going to tackle a massive paradox that so many of us are facing right now. We're diving into exactly why modern self-improvement might actually be the very thing burning you out. And more importantly, how legendary psychologist Carl Jung's concept of the shadow holds the real, uncompromising key to genuine psychological growth. Okay, let's just dive right into this with a brutal, direct question. I want you to take a moment and be incredibly honest with yourself. Think about all that energy you've spent over the last few years, adding new positive habits to your morning routine. Now ask yourself, are you actually healing? Or are you just performing the act of healing, all while feeling more fundamentally exhausted than ever before? Listen, if you feel burned out by your own self-improvement, you're basically fighting an invisible psychological war. To really understand this deep exhaustion, we first have to break down section 1, the illusion of light. Right now, we exist inside this massive, multi-billion-dollar industry, right? And it's built entirely on telling you exactly how to feel better. We're constantly bombarded by messaging telling us to buy a specific crystal or download some new meditation app or maybe burn sage in the corners of our perfectly clean apartments to somehow fix this deep, lingering emptiness. And hey, if none of that works, society just tells you to think more positively. Just try harder. But there's a really stark, unavoidable irony here. We spend absolutely billions buying mugs that say good vibes only, and yet our collective anxiety and existential dread have literally never been higher. I mean, Carl Jung would look at this and laugh. He knew you don't cure a deep psychological fracture with a $40 bath bomb. Seriously, if your spiritual awakening just feels like a warm bath, you aren't waking up, you're just taking a nap. And this brings us to section 2, the contaminated tank. So Jung spent decades studying actual measurable human transformation, and he discovered a fundamental truth that the modern self-help industry kind of wants to ignore. The crucial point here is that you do not grow by simply adding more things to your life. You grow by removing what keeps you small. Think about it. You absolutely cannot put perfectly clean water into a contaminated tank and expect that water to stay clean. The foundation itself has to be addressed first. To survive in society, we all walk around wearing what Jung called a persona. It's basically a carefully constructed mask built to earn approval and, avoid rejection. But here's the catch. To wear that mask, you took all your so-called unacceptable traits, your anger, your fierce ambition, your jealousy, and you shoved them completely out of your conscious awareness. You locked them in the basement. This is what Jung called the shadow. Now, you might think bearing these messy parts makes you a good person, but the continuous, relentless performance of this goodness is actually one of the most exhausting, draining ways a human being can possibly move through the world. When you lock those dark traits away, well, you arrive at section 3, the invisible director. Jung issued a truly terrifying warning to all of us about this. He said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." Let that sink in for a second. If you don't do the hard work to make these hidden currents conscious, they are going to silently pull your boat in directions you just don't understand, in the dark of night. You'll think you're making rational, conscious choices, but in reality, you'll be entirely controlled by what you refuse to look at, and you'll falsely call it fate. Because these hidden shadow forces, they don't just stay hidden. They manifest in very real, very destructive ways. You might find yourself repeatedly sabotaging perfectly good relationships for no apparent reason. Or maybe you suddenly erupt in uncontrollable anger over something tiny. Or, honestly, most commonly, you might just feel this heavy, completely unexplainable emptiness despite doing everything right according to society's rules. Make no mistake, that is the shadow operating straight from the basement. And this external distortion brings us right to section 4, the projection trap. So Jung identified this brilliant psychological mechanism called projection. It reveals that when you criticize someone else with an unusual, disproportionate intensity, you're not actually making a rational observation about them. You are, in fact, projecting your own disowned, buried traits right onto that individual. It's wild. You're literally seeing the contents of your own locked room walking around inside someone else. Let's ground this in reality for a minute. This means that the intense, boiling anger you feel towards, say, a manipulative colleague or some arrogant stranger on the internet, that's actually a form of self-oppression. It stems from a deep terror of owning that exact capacity within yourself. You're angry because they're freely expressing a part of the human experience that you have spent your entire life aggressively policing and hiding away. So how on earth do we stop this invisible sabotage? We have to look at Section 5, the sacred fire. Jung gave us a terrifying but absolutely liberating truth here. He said, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. You simply do not reach a higher frequency of existence by just repeating positive affirmations over a cracked foundation. You do it by rolling up your sleeves and doing the uncompromising, difficult work of making your darkness conscious. Let's walk through the exact steps to genuine transformation here. First up, you have to stop trying to add positive thinking to a contaminated foundation. It just doesn't work. Second, you have to turn around, literally unlock the door to your shadow, and look directly at what you would much rather look away from. And third, you have to develop brutal, uncompromising honesty about your own dark capacities. Yes, your capacity for manipulation, your hungers for control, your ability to wound, we all have it. But look at the incredible paradigm shift that happens when you actually do this work. When you stop rejecting the darkness, your suppressed emotions completely transform. Think about anger. Unintegrated anger, that's a toxic, festering poison. But integrated anger becomes a sacred fire. It no longer controls you from the shadows. Instead, it fuels your evolution. It burns away the relationships that no longer serve you, and it completely destroys the outdated agreements you made back when you valued yourself a whole lot less. Which leads us to our final takeaway, Section 6, become who you are. When you finally do this, you're going to quickly realize something truly profound. Your shadow doesn't just hold the bad things. It actually holds the most alive, authentic, and powerful parts of you. It holds your unlived potential and all those raw strengths that society, schools, and maybe even your parents taught you to hide away just so you could fit in. By reclaiming your shadow, you are literally reclaiming your power. So stop trying to fix yourself with more light. You do not need another app or a 10-step routine to mask the chaos inside you. As Jung wrote, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. What you actually need is the courage to integrate your full, irreducible complexity and claim the privilege of becoming a genuinely whole human being. I'm going to leave you with this final, provocative test of your psychological maturity. What is the one messy, unacceptable, or intense part of your personality that you have spent your entire life apologizing for or trying to hide? I really want you to claim that shadow trait today. Acknowledge it. Because looking directly into your darkness, that is the absolute first step to taking your life back.